Hi, I'm Deb Kimmett, and this is the Pandemic Check-in News Brief for September 19th, 2021. It's been quite a while since we've done one of these, and so let's just jump right in. First of all, a shout out goes to the Massage Health Practitioners and COVID-19 Facebook group for calling some of this to my attention. I also belong to various lists that provide overviews of the research that's out there as well. And you'll notice at the bottom of the slides, I have an abbreviated source. I mainly want you to see the author and the date because I try to bring the most current research. The full citation is in a companion PDF file. And another thing that I want you to know is that science changes. So what we know today and what I talk about today may not be what we know tomorrow. So please make sure that you're checking the date of this particular update in the context of what's been going on since this was prepared. So first of all, the first thing I'd like to do is talk about a general update. The fourth wave is in full swing and we've reached a grim milestone. 1 in 500 people have died of COVID. The Washington Post has a great article that breaks it down by age groups and demographics. For example, 1 in 35 of those who died was over the age of 85. 1 in 580 Montanans, and only 18 states and the District of Columbia have a higher death rate than Montana's. So the article is a good read and you can check out what's going on in your state as well. I follow the CDC maps on how they're tracking risk for the virus, but I find that COVID Act Now has a little bit finer way of looking at the issue. It's on a scale of 5 rather than what the CDC uses, which is a scale of 4. And here's the national view. Then here's what it looks like when you break it down by county. It gives you a little bit finer look, but let's go back to that full state view. Montana is at a higher risk level than Idaho, and Idaho has been all over the news because they're rationing healthcare there. Montana only went to the higher risk level last Thursday, September 16th. It appears that the risk level is based on cases per 100,000. You can see here that it's getting into the extreme territory with 77 cases per 100K. Here in Montana, St. Peter's Hospital in Helena has ordered a refrigerator truck to deal with overflow deaths and is now rationing care. If you get sick or are in an accident, there may not be enough room at the hospital to help you. And hospitals in Missoula, Bozeman, and Billings are preparing to ration care too. And Billings Clinic has needed to divert patients to other hospitals. On Monday, they had 45 ICU patients, but only 28 beds. So we're about to join Idaho in getting to a really bad situation with healthcare rationing at the major hospitals in the state. We'll talk about breakthrough cases, booster shots, and the variants in a minute, but the broad general takeaway for massage therapists here is that there are a lot of cases, so stay safe and be impeccable in your protocols. And this goes nationwide as well. The second item on the agenda is booster shots. There was some big news about booster shots in the news on Friday. There is concern now that the vaccine effectiveness is dropping over time, about 8 months, and particularly for those 65 and older. So that's why the move towards booster shots. And on Friday, September 17th, some experts weighed in. This is not a done deal. The FDA still has to issue its guidance and may decide differently, but there was a committee of experts that weighed in that advised the FDA. First, I want to talk about immunocompromised people. They can and are now getting a third dose, but this isn't what we're talking about. Getting another dose versus booster shots are different. The way I understand it is that a third dose is needed when people don't get to their full immunity with the initial 2 doses. Immunocompromised people fit into that category. And a booster is needed when people who have developed their immunity from the shots begin to lose that immunity. And that's what this is about. So this advisory committee voted on Friday to allow booster shots for the Pfizer vaccine 6 months after vaccination. The other vaccines were not considered at all. So we're talking just about the Pfizer vaccine. So who gets them? Well, first of all, anyone over 65. And one of the reporting sources that I looked at made me scratch my head a little bit because the data out of Israel was for 60 and older. And some other reporting says 65. And the reporting implied that the age cutoff might have been arbitrary by quoting those on the committee advocating for each one, whether it was 60 or 65. And so the second group that'll get boosters is anyone at high risk for severe illness. The committee also agreed that boosters should be made available to those at risk because of occupational exposure. They didn't recommend that it be given to the general population yet, as there's a lack of safety data. Eventually there will be, and then more recommendations will probably be coming. Again, this is not a done deal. This committee is only advisory to the FDA, so the FDA will probably decide next week is what they're saying, or maybe even this week. And the FDA and CDC will decide who meets the criteria of being at high risk of severe illness. While I was editing this video, both the Washington Post and the MedPage Today both said that the FDA has accepted these guidelines, and they broadened them just a little bit to include anyone whose frequent or institutional occupational exposure to the virus puts them at high risk. And that's what came exactly out of the Washington Post. Anyway, so that means that we should be able to get the booster shots. However, it's still not a done deal because the CDC still needs to sign off on this. And hopefully they'll do so this week. The massage therapist takeaway here is we should push for boosters for us because we're in a high risk occupation, high risk, high exposure occupation. The next topic is breakthrough cases. And that has been coming up a lot. We've been seeing a lot, and I've been very curious about it. So I took a look at this issue. First of all, we need to make clear that vaccines are not 100% effective. No vaccine is, and it's unrealistic to believe that vaccines should stop all infections. And the thing here is with COVID and breakthrough cases, we really don't know how many there are for sure because the CDC isn't tracking all cases. They're only tracking cases that are severe. So you're hearing a lot of numbers that speak to high breakthrough infections. Not all of them are accurate, but here's what we do know. Studies show that vaccinated people are 8 times less likely to be infected than unvaccinated people, and 25 times less likely to be hospitalized or die. And in the Netherlands, in a preprint study, meaning that it hasn't been peer-reviewed yet, but it has been quoted in the news and has been significant, is that among healthcare workers, there were 161 breakthrough cases of all these healthcare workers, and most of them were from the Delta variant, which makes it comparable to the US because that's the dominant variant here. And one of the things about those 161 breakthrough cases is that no one was hospitalized or died. And another thing we know is that in an ABC News survey of those in the ICU because of COVID, 94% had been unvaccinated. And of those that were vaccinated, quote, almost all suffered from comorbidities and other health problems, unquote. And when you have those things, that can make the vaccine not as effective. But the thing is, people will point to what happened in Massachusetts and say, well, there were a whole ton of breakthrough cases there. I mean, even the CDC reported on it. But what the media failed to report is that of the 346 vaccinated people who contracted COVID, only 4 were hospitalized and none of them died. What this means is that if you have a breakthrough case, it's rare to get a severe case. And that's one of the concerns about using the term breakthrough to describe these cases. The term makes it sound like it's really bad, but it's not. Usually the symptoms are fairly mild. However, when hospitalization is needed with a breakthrough case, a significant number of those are immunocompromised. So chances are, unless you have some sort of underlying health issue, chances are you're going to have less than a severe case. And the people in Massachusetts, getting back to that, is that in that case, people were really densely packed in together. So cases were bound to happen. So just follow the CDC guidelines about masking and distancing, and it's even less likely that you'll get a breakthrough case. The massage therapist takeaway here is that we don't know how many breakthrough cases there are. We only hear about the severe ones. And the severe breakthrough cases are pretty rare. And the other piece is follow your protocols, be impeccable in your protocols. On a personal note, my suggestion is to definitely tighten up your COVID protocols so that you're taking as many precautions as possible, because while you're much less likely to be infected, one of the things we don't have much data on are those breakthrough cases in terms of the non-serious ones. You won't get a severe case, but that doesn't talk about long-term COVID or any of those issues that won't land you in the hospital. So again, make sure that you're following your protocols and tighten them up to be as stringent as possible. This sort of leads to the next question, which is, well, just how contagious are you if you do have a breakthrough case? We know that unvaccinated people are very contagious and are driving the pandemic. We don't exactly know how infectious people are who've been vaccinated and had a breakthrough case. More research is needed on that. The CDC said the viral load is the same, but this was based on a very small study, whereas two different and larger studies both said, hold on, we need to look at more data. And they did. And one of them said vaccinated people are less infectious. Again, that's vaccinated people are less infectious based on the viral load count. And both of the studies, which again were larger than the CDC, the one the CDC quoted, both said that viral loads decreased more quickly than in unvaccinated people. So based on these larger studies, it's likely that those who have a breakthrough case may or may not be contagious, but if they are, they'll be less infectious, and the time they will be contagious is less than somebody who's unvaccinated. The massage therapist takeaway here, if you have a breakthrough case, it's less likely that you are contagious, but still behave as if you are. And also, you will be contagious for a shorter period of time than someone who's unvaccinated. On to number 5, the variants. Let's talk about the variants. So headlines like this one sensationalize the issue. Dr. Fauci warns of possible monster variant of COVID-19. This particular article does come back to earth with the last line of the article saying, well, it's unlikely because the Delta variant is so prevalent. But that's the problem. Everybody wants a good headline. And the ones in the press are now about the Mu and Lambda variants. The Mu variant is getting some press as being a concern because they believe the vaccine is not as effective against it. But there's no real proof of that in real world studies. And as of Friday, September 17th, neither variant is listed on the CDC and Mayo Clinic lists that track variants of concern in the United States. Variants only become a real concern when they can get a foothold. These viruses all compete against each other, and the ones that can spread faster, meaning that they're more contagious, will take over and become dominant. So far, that's been the Delta variant. And US health officials say that the Delta variant makes up about 99% of the cases in the United States right now. And while the Mu variant is in 49 states, it only makes up 0.2% of the cases. So, but that's not to say that the Mu variant couldn't become dominant, but all indicators are that it won't. Cases of the Mu variant are declining since July, both worldwide and in South America where it was first found. And if it was going to be dominant, it wouldn't be doing that. The same is true with the case of the Lambda variant. It's declining too. So to sum it up, it doesn't mean that a variant couldn't be an issue in the future. As more people remain unvaccinated, that allows more contagious variants to develop and spread. And Fauci is correct when he says that at some point it could happen. It's just not going to happen right away. Okay. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't be an issue on the future. As more people remain unvaccinated, that allows variants to develop and spread. And to give you some perspective, these variants can spread quite quickly. So for example, in the 2 weeks ending May 22nd, Delta was at 3%. Now it's at 99%. So in 3.5 months, it went from hardly anything to being very dominant. So what we will see is that if there's a variant that's worse than a Delta variant, it'll spread very quickly and it will have to be more contagious. And so here's the massage therapist takeaway. The longer people remain unvaccinated, the more likely it is that a variant will develop to overtake the Delta variant. Item number 6 is about vaccine status discrimination. And this is really specific to Montana because in Montana only, you cannot discriminate based on vaccine status. Yeah, I'm reading on the COVID-19 Facebook groups that people are only seeing vaccinated clients and saying that they are not seeing anyone who's unvaccinated. But in Montana, you can't discriminate based on vaccine status because this applies to all businesses, including massage therapists. This is the state passed a law this year reaching into private businesses, including massage therapists, that basically says you can't refuse to treat unvaccinated people. You can require them to wear masks, but then you have to make everyone masks. So you're not discriminating against people who choose not to get vaccinated. Another topic is the testing that's out there. The Biden administration has finally recognized and is pushing for rapid tests. They're going to invoke the Defense Production Act to make more tests available. And these are antigen tests that can be done at home and with immediate results, either 10 or 15 minutes. Walmart, Amazon, and Kroger will sell at-home rapid test kits at cost for about 3 months, which is into around early December. And I did check on Amazon and they didn't have any. And if you want to get them at Walmart, you need to get there early because they are flying off the shelves. One other thing about testing at this point, it's very important to understand the difference between the rapid tests and the PCR testing. I've talked at length about these tests in video number 007 on the Zoom forums page. I put that link up here for you. Go check it out because I talk about it in depth. And basically what the difference is, they keep saying that PCR tests are more accurate than the at-home tests, and it depends upon what you're testing for. I think it's important to understand the purpose of each of these tests. What the PCR tests tell you is that you've been exposed to the virus and that you have the virus in you, and you may or may not be contagious. Whereas what the antigen tests, these rapid tests tell you is the likelihood of being contagious. And so they don't just pick up that you have the virus in you. What they do is they really pick up whether or not you're contagious. So one is for showing whether you have the virus. The other one is showing whether or not you're contagious at the time that you take the test. So they both have very good uses in terms of determining the spread of COVID and determining the spread of contagion. Clients can use the rapid tests, and you can use the rapid tests to determine how contagious you are on the day of their appointment. Also, it's a good substitute when you can't and don't have access to asymptomatic PCR testing. At one point, my local health department said they were going to test asymptomatic healthcare workers and ramp up their testing. Well, once Delta took off, then what ended up happening is they shut that program down and referred people to clinics where you could get asymptomatic testing, but you had to pay out of pocket for that. And it was pretty expensive. It was over $100 for the test. So doing that on a weekly basis, like some folks on Facebook have posted that they're doing, is great if you can get them, and also if you can keep the cost down. But if you can't, the rapid tests are a relatively inexpensive way to at least monitor how contagious you are. And so just to wrap this up, just remember that rapid tests are about showing when you're more contagious and have a higher viral load. So you can still be infected when you show a negative rapid test. And I talk about all of that there, and I'm pointing you there rather than going through all of it again. So review the video if you want to learn more about it. And in our final topic, we now have the final word on masking. A huge study out of Bangladesh of over 350,000 people showed that wearing a mask interrupts the spread of COVID-19, and that a surgical mask works much better than cloth masks. So switch your masks out and encourage your clients to do that too. One note is that this is a preprint, meaning that it has not been published in a respected journal yet, but just by looking at the sources where this was reported is significant, and they're trying to get the word out on this quickly. And on a closing note, just to remind you once again, science changes. So what we know today may not be what we know tomorrow. I appreciate you taking a look at what I've put together here. Thanks for watching, and take care and stay safe.